Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are around the world. My name is Kartik, and welcome once again to the Swami Army preview. This time we're going to be previewing the first test of the Pataudi Trophy between England and India. Team India moves on after a couple of series at home to their first big away series assignment in a long time, and will face also a rebuilding England over there in England as we speak. So it's going to be a big series for both teams in a rebuilding phase. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out. Joining me today, as always, we have our fellow Swami Army member, Angad. Angad, welcome to you.
Thanks, Kartik. Always a pleasure.
Fantastic, thanks for joining us. And also our two special guests, one of them who's almost become a veteran resident on our shows is former ABC broadcaster, ABC Grandstand broadcaster, I should say, Glenn Mitchell. Glenn, welcome to you.
Nice to be back again, Kartik, and looking forward to this series.
Absolutely, it should be a cracker. And also our special guest from India is ESPNCricinfo's correspondent, Abhishek Purohit. Abhishek, welcome to you.
Hi, Karthik. Glad to be back.
Fantastic. Always good to have you all. Guys, we'll get started. As I said at the top, India taking on England now in a five-match series. It's a new concept for for India, especially. England obviously play the five matches against Australia in the Ashes. But for Team India, this is the first time in a long time that they're playing any a match series longer than four test matches. So it's going to be a big test for them. But Abhishek, to start off with you, what do you think is going to be the major talking point in this series, especially from an England perspective? Obviously, we've seen a lot of pressure on the captain, Alistair Cook, after the series lost to Sri Lanka and the team losing 5-0 in the Ashes. Is that how much of an impact is that going to be playing on the England side and also on the Indian side?
Well, when it comes to Alistair Cook, it is all about runs in the end, isn't it? We were at one point in time we were comparing him to Sachin Tendulkar, and a few fans had started worrying that he might be the one who could overtake that mountainous centuries record. But that's the thing with Alistair Cook. He'll have to get runs in the end. I don't think anyone sees him as this kind of fabulous tactician or something. So it's got to be the runs for him in the end. If the runs come, the captaincy will stand. And I'm hopeful that he will get the runs because he has a fabulous record against India, both home and away.
Absolutely. And Glenn, from your perspective and MS Dhoni's side of things, he's obviously not had the best record overseas, and I think he's lost the last 14 Test matches overseas, including 4-0 to both Australia and England the last time they were touring. How much of an impact does that play on this series?
I think it plays a big impact, Kartik, in particular because it's a five-test series. If India drop behind early, for example, if they trail 2-0 or even 1-0 in the draw through the opening two test matches, I think because it is such a protracted series that there will be a greater focus on MS Dhoni. If it was only a three-test series and really after two tests it's done and dusted and then India potentially move on to the next series. But I think if they're under pressure, it may actually not necessarily cause fractures within the Indian team, but I think that the media scrutiny that will fall on MS Dhoni is likely to have an impact on India's team performance. So, I mean, India will be hoping for a very good start in the series, but they'll also be hoping for Dhoni to make some sort of impact with the bat and for his top order, and in particular his bowlers, to be able to get the 20 wickets they need.
Most definitely. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how things pan out, especially from MS Dhoni's captaincy. Now, Angad, both captains have been reported or have been known to be very defensive in Test cricket, especially MSD. Obviously, he's a lot more attacking in the one-day format, and Alistair Cook has recently been has almost had a lot of arguments and a lot of critics. Who we won't name, which I'm sure everyone's heard about. But how do you see this panning out, especially from both captains being very defensive?
Yeah, the thing with Cook and his that's the thing that's going against him is his lack of form. Whereas he hasn't had the batting woes of Cook as of late. Another key difference is that Dhoni, as you said, is a very attacking limited overs captain. So that's the key difference between them at the moment, I feel, because Cook's captaincy in the one day game isn't as innovative, attacking, or instinctive as Dhoni's is. So I think Dhoni just has to take that mindset as he would in a limited over series, and it could be the difference in the Test series. But from the series perspective, I think that it might be a bit dry at times if they do go into their defensive shells, as both captains are known to be. But yeah, it's a big series for both captains in the grand scheme of things, because as Abhishek said, that this could be the end of Cook if his batting doesn't come off and if England end up losing. But it's like I feel it's the last opportunity Dhoni's got to stamp his authority on this era of Indian cricket.
Absolutely, and this leads me to the team selection, and we can reveal to all our viewers right now that India has won the toss and will bat first. There's a live messages from England as we speak. India has won the toss and will bat first. Abhishek, Stuart Binney has been selected to make his first to make his debut, which means India will go in with 5 bowlers. How do you think that's going to play out in this Test match?
Well, and we have always spoken about this inside Cricinfo, and I half expected Siddharth Monga actually to write this line yesterday, that people had given up asking him this question. Nobody asked him anymore about 5 bowlers, because the standard answer is, if I play more than 3 fast bowlers, I'll get banned. So in South Africa, in New Zealand, we had given up asking him this question, and I had never ever thought that he will play Stuart Binney, let alone forget a Test match, let alone in an ODI. Because he'd given him 1 over in Hamilton, if I'm not wrong. And during that 1 over, he'd not done badly, and that was it for him. He was left out on the outfield after that. So this indicates to me that Dhoni really wants to have a big impact on this series, and he's doing whatever it is there in his control to take those 20 wickets. Because that has been the biggest problem for India.
You're right, and also, I mean, Stuart Binney is definitely coming off good form. I think he scored about 80 odd in the warm-up match, and then, won the game for India in Bangladesh in that crazy one day where we only scored less than 200 runs between both teams, and 20 wickets fell for a lot less than that. So it's definitely an interesting selection. From an England perspective, Glenn, I mean, how do you think things will pan out with their lineup? We haven't got the full official lineup yet, but it's coming through. Who do you expect? Any surprises, or what do you expect to see? What's happening?
Well, first of all, I'd actually say it's a surprise that India's won the toss and decided to bat. I mean, if you're going to put 5 quicks in your bowling attack, you'd imagine that you'd want to try and use whatever there is on the opening day, although the reports from Nottingham is that the pitch is reasonably dry. It doesn't have a lot of grass on it, but it does seem an interesting thing that you stack your team with bowlers and then you opt to, when you win the toss, to actually bat. As far as England's concerned, it's interesting to see that Matt Pryor has been able to regain his place in the team, and he was in good form in that abbreviated series against Sri Lanka, even though it didn't go England's way. It will be fascinating to see who they actually go with in the final analysis. For me, I think Stuart Broad is going to be a very key figure, and one of the other interesting things from England will be whether James Anderson can return to some sort of form. I mean, he was very ordinary in the last Ashes series, and he isn't the same bowler really over the last 2 years that he was before that. And if they can't get Anderson to be overly productive and really support Stuart Broad, then England might actually struggle to get 20 wickets without at least conceding a fair few runs as well.
Most definitely. It's definitely, as you said, an interesting choice that India's won the toss and batted first with the selection of that 5th bowler. So, but from all reports, the wicket is set to be a good hard wicket with brown grass and not green grass, from what Dhoni is saying, reading off Cricinfo as we go. But the experts are saying that it is definitely a bat first pitch. There may be a bit in it in the first couple of hours, but after it should settle in, and hopefully, if India can get off to a good start in that first couple of hours before lunch, then could post a big total and then set up the match from there. Now, going forward, obviously we've talked about the two captains. We've talked about their teams. Now, who do you think? And I'll ask you, each of you. I'll start with you, Angad. Who do you think is who will be the standout player, the player of the series, for you for this series, or who's going to have the biggest impact between both sides?
For England, I believe that Stokes will be a huge factor, especially since it is 5 tests in 7 weeks. They're talking about a lot of bowler rotation, so I think Stokes will come into the equation quite a bit for them. For India, I'm going for the batting up top. I think it'll be a huge series of Pujara and Kohli. Last time round, Dravid was India's best batsman in that horrible series where they lost 4-0, and Pujara is this generation's Dravid, so I don't see why he would not do well in this series, and a lot will come down to him and Kohli, especially since the openers seem a bit shaky after the couple of practice games so far. So my tip: Stokes for England and Pujara for India.
Fantastic. I think we've just been joined by Gaurav Joshi, our man on site there in England at the Test match.
I've just lost you, mate.
Struggling a little bit there.
Okay, hang on, I've got you.
Gaurav, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
Yes, well, Gaurav, welcome to you. You have you're in a fortunate position where you can see what's happening at the ground with the pitch and the
How are you, mate? See you again? How you been? Enjoying the game?
I missed most of what you said, but from what I can see, it's bright.
Can you give us an update on the conditions over there and also the team selections?
Well, team selections, it is a very good, bright and sunny day in Nottingham. So it's a pretty browny sort of pitch that we're going to get out here. What we get in terms of Stuart Binney is making his debut for India. The rest of the team is pretty much as it is. You have Dhoni batting at 6 and Binney down at 7 and Jadeja at 8. But yeah, look, pitch. A lot of been talk in England's been about how they've replaced what's underneath the square. They've got a lot of sand underneath. So basically, when they actually water the ground, the moisture's not hanging in there. That's why we're getting a lot of these dry pitches, and that's what this one looks like. So there's a little bit of forecast for a bit of rain later on, day 2 and perhaps the weekend. But look, it looks a very Indian sort of pitch. It's definitely bright and sunny. So I guess when the toss went up, it would have been bat by both captains. And of course, Cook said that at the toss that he would have loved to bat as well. So that's my update from here, Kartik.
Fantastic. Just hang on the line, Gaurav. We'll get a tip from you very shortly. Abhishek, your tip for the man of the series, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact?
I went for Virat Kohli in the World T20. I'm going for Virat Kohli again. He made that fabulous century in his first innings in South Africa, and I'm backing him to do well again here. He's at that stage in his career where he can now actually start off, leaving behind some sort of legacy by the time he's done. He's reached that stage in his career. It can be said without doubt. So I'm backing Virat Kohli again.
Fantastic. And Glenn, what about yourself? Who's your star player for this series?
Well, I agree with Abhishek. I think that Virat Kohli will be the star player for India. I mean, his last 10 Test matches, he's averaging near on 60. In his last 19 Tests, he's made 5 centuries, and I think he showed in South Africa that he can also be a line away from home, not necessarily just on the flatter Indian wickets. And for England, I think Stuart Broad will actually be the key player for them. Very impressed with his bowling here in Australia during the summer. I mean, he really put in. He carried the attack in the virtual absence on the field, at least of Anderson, who didn't really fight. So for me, Kohli for India, and I think Stuart Broad will be the key player at the end of the series for the home side.
I'll agree with Glenn there actually. With I think it was Broad who hit India at the most crucial times in the 2011 series. India and Dhoni have this habit of slightly taking their foot off the pedal when the opposition is 7 down, 8 down, and Broad is probably the most dangerous man in those situations in Test cricket, I would say.
That's true. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how we keep Broad to be very inefficient from an Indian perspective. Now, guys, I'll go around the table. Give us a tip, a winner of the series, and also a scoreline. We'll start with you, Angadh.
I'm going to say just purely the pitches this season in England be quite dry. I think as this goes on, we might pick up in later on, so say 2-1 India.
2-1 India, was that? I think we're just struggling to hear Angadh there. Glenn, yourself, how do you think the series is going to play out? Give us a tip of the winner and also a series scoreline.
Well, one of the big things, I think, Kartik, given the fact it's 5 tests and it goes over 7 or 8 weeks, that the weather could well be a key thing over there in England. It's very unusual to get through a full 4 or 5 test series over there without rain intervening to a fair degree. So that I guess, does make it difficult when you're making a tip. But I just think that England is just not travelling well at the moment, and I think this is a massive series for them, and equally as big for Dhoni with India on the road. And I'm going to go as Angadh did, depending on what the weather situation is. I reckon that India might scrape home with this series, which will be a tremendous fill-up for them, given their lacklustre form on the road. So I'm going to go 2-1 for India as well.
Fantastic. That's what we like to hear. Now, Abhishek, to yourself, how do you see this series panning out? A winner and the scoreline, please.
I still have some faith in England even after they unbelievably went out to Sri Lanka. I am plumping for England 2-1 here. And as Glenn said, the weather is bound to have an impact over a 5-test series. So accounting for that, I'm settling for England 2-1.
Okay, I think Gaurav might have dropped off there, but that's all right. From my perspective, I think I'm actually going to say that India will win. I'm not going to be as bold as I usually am and say 5-0. But I think I'm going to cut it back a little bit, and I'm going to say 4-0 only because one of the tests will probably be affected by the rain. So I'm going to say 4-0 to India to win. We turn some heads and really start this new era of Indian cricket on a really big high. I think a lot of people will see some of these youngsters play and really outperform the opposition and also exceed their expectations. So 4-0 for me. The player of the series for me, I think one man who hasn't been spoken about too much is Ajinkya Rahane. He showed signs in South Africa, where he almost got a fantastic century. He was unfortunately just fell short by a couple of runs, and also did really well in New Zealand as well. So I think this will be his breakout series. He's got a 5-match series. He'll definitely get a lot more opportunities, and he, for mine, will definitely have a big series. That's all we have time for, guys. I'd like to thank all four of our guests for joining us today. As always, Angadh, thanks very much for your time.
No problem.
Abhishek, we really appreciate your time as well. I know you're on a busy schedule, so thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks, mate. My pleasure.
And Glenn, as always, thank you very much. Again, you're also on a busy schedule, so we really appreciate your time as well.
Thanks a lot, Kartik, and I'm just delighted that a few days ago that we actually got word we're going to see this series on television. It'll be fantastic.
That's right, yes. Fox Sports will be showing the series live into Australia, which is also great news. I think it took a lot of social media rants by several disgruntled fans to get over the line. A couple of being part of that too. That's all we have time for, guys. So there you go. We've previewed the first test of this series. Hopefully, Team India will come out with a win. To give you the latest update, is Team India has won the toss and will bat first. Stuart Binney will make his test debut. We look forward to your company at the end of the match, rather, in a couple of days' time to review it and then look forward to the next test. My name is Kartik. Thanks very much for joining. You can watch the full replay on swamiarmy.com or on our YouTube and Google Plus page. So make sure you check it out. We'll see you guys very soon. Thank you.
Cheers.